This video is about graphing using slope-intercept form where we have to solve. So remember yesterday when we were graphing, we could graph right away because all of our equations were in y equals form. Today, we need to get y by itself first. Then we need to identify the slope and the y-intercept, and then we can graph. So first, let's practice just solving for y so that we can identify the slope and the y-intercept. So in number one, we have 4y, and we want y to be by itself. Remember, 4y is multiplying, so the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide everything in the problem by 4 and reduce. So we get y equals 8 divided by 4 is 2x. And then negative 28 divided by 4 gets us negative 7. So when we're identifying our slope, remember that the slope is the number always in front of the x. So our slope here is 2. We could also write that as 2 over 1, which will help us with graphing later. And our y-intercept is the number that's by itself with the sign. So in this case, our y-intercept would be 0, negative 7. Remember to always write it as a coordinate with the x-coordinate being 0. Number two, we have negative 5y equals 2x minus 25. So in order to get y by itself, we're going to divide everything by negative 5. And we get y equals. Now, 2 is not divisible by negative 5, so we're just going to leave it as a fraction. Never go to a decimal. Just leave it as a fraction. And then negative 25 divided by negative 5 gets us positive 5. So in this case, our slope, again, is a number in front of the x, negative 2/5. And then our y-intercept is the number by itself. So our y-intercept will be 0, 5. Now, 3 and 4 are a little bit different because as you notice, the y is by itself, but now we have an x on the same side as it. So we need to move the x to the other side. In order to do that, we're going to look at what sign the x has. So in this case, this is just a 1. So it's a positive 1. So to move something that's positive to the other side, we're going to subtract. So we're going to subtract x from both sides. Now, 7 and x are not like terms because one's a constant and one's a variable. So we're just going to rewrite this as y equals negative x plus 7. When I look at my slope is that negative sign, which really means it's negative 1. And remember, we can write that as negative 1 over 1. My y-intercept is the number by itself, so in this case, 7. So we have 0, 7. Number 4, when I look at this, I have 7x plus y equals 15. 7x is positive, so to move that to the other side, we're going to subtract 7x. And we get y equals negative 7x plus 15. So in this case, my slope is the number in front of the x, so negative 7, which I can write as negative 7 over 1. And my y-intercept is that number by itself, 0, 15. So now we're going to use that idea and we're going to graph like we did yesterday. So first we have to make sure the equation is in slope-intercept form, so y equals, and then we do the same steps we did yesterday. We identify our slope and y-intercept, and we use our rise over run to plot our points. Remember, you need to have at least 3 points if they fit on the graph in order to make a line. So in the first one, we have 3y equals negative 6x plus 18. So to get y by itself, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide everything by 3 and reduce. So we get y equals negative 2x plus 6. So I'm going to identify my slope and my y-intercept. So my slope is the number in front of the x, negative 2, which I can rewrite as negative 2 over 1. So remember that means if it's a negative number, we're going to go down 2, and then we're always going to go to the right, so we're going to go right 1 in this case. Our y-intercept is the number by itself, so we have 0, 6. So now I have my information, I can start to graph. So I'm going to go to 0, 6 on the y-axis. Remember that the y-axis is that vertical axis. So I'm going to go to 0, 6 and place a dot. And then I'm going to use my slope. I'm going to count down 2 grid lines, right 1, place a dot, down 2 grid lines, right 1, place a dot. Now I have 3 points, so I can connect those and add arrows to my graph. Make sure you're adding arrows to show that the line goes on forever in both directions. In the second problem, we have negative 10y equals 5x minus 40. So in order to get y by itself, we're going to divide everything by negative 10. We get y equals. Now, 5 over negative 10 does not divide to negative 2. It divides to negative 0.5. So I don't want a decimal. I'm going to take 5 out of both things by dividing. I'm left with -1/2 x and then plus 4. Now, I put the negative in the top because that number tells me to go up or down, so I always put my negative with the top number. So my slope here is -1/2, and my y-intercept is the number by itself, so my y-intercept would be 0, 4. So again, we're going to start on the y-axis at 0, 4. So I'm going to find 0, 4, place a dot. My slope is negative, so I'm going to go down 1 and right 2. So I go down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, and then I can connect my dots and add arrows to both sides of my line. In the next one, we have 2x plus y equals 5. So first I got to get the 2x to the other side. It's positive, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Remember that 2x and 5 will not combine because they're not like terms. So we're just going to rewrite it as y equals -2x plus 5. And I get plus 5 because the y is positive. So in this case, when I look at my slope in front of the x is -2, which I can rewrite as -2/1. And my y-intercept is the number by itself, 5, so I'm going to go 0, 5. So on my graph then, I need to go to 5 on the y-axis. And then my slope is -2, so down 2, right 1. So I go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And I can connect those dots and add arrows to my line. So let's look at one last problem. -5x plus y equals -3. So this time the x is negative. Well, the opposite of negative is positive, so we're going to add 5x to both sides. Y equals 5x minus 3. So in this case then, my slope again is the number in front of the x, which is 5. So I can rewrite that as 5/1. And my y-intercept is the number by itself, so 0, -3. So when I go to graph this time, I want to go to -3 on the y-axis. So -3 on the y-axis, place a dot. My slope is 5/1. So the number on top tells me to go up 5 because it's positive, and then right 1. So from this I'm going to count up 5 grid lines over 1, up 5 grid lines over 1, and I'm going to connect my line and add my arrows.